This is what if Deku was the Deep from the boys. Now, originally I was going to do what if Deku was Black Noir, or if Deku was A-Train or something like that, or what if Deku was straight up just Huey from the boys, or what if Deku replaced Huey in the boys universe. But I want to go with this because it's I guess, I kind of like the character Deep. Not because, the whole entire thing he did to Starlight was horrible, but I kind of like him because mainly the fact that he's an underdog, and also literally no one in the boys universe takes him serious. Like literally everyone just thinks he's a comedy relief. He's not even that strong, and we don't even know if he has super strength or not because we've barely been able to see his true power. And because like the whole entire fight scene he had with the guys in episode 1, or I think in episode 2, it was all staged. So we don't even know if pretty much we don't even know if the Deep has any other powers other than just talking to the fish or just breathing underwater. But basically, guys, it's gonna be a combination of the Deep from the comics and the Deep from the TV show. I like the TV show Deep better, but let's just get into the video. Now, pretty much, I don't expect this video to get a lot of views, but it's an idea I wanted to do. So let's get into the video. Let's start the story off in this universe and how it will be set up to be. Now, I start the story off with pretty much quirks. Quirks would have been pretty much, given to only a specific view of humans doing about World War III, meaning that they would have came into society and also go on to Earth a lot more sooner. During World War III, because in this universe, World War III would have happened about 20 years after World War II. Basically, it starting a whole literal world-breaking disaster. All countries all around the world being destroyed and, consumed in the flames. As it happened, over the generations, they would have been able to rebuild society, correct people, but also humans would have felt like they were being extinct. So humans would have felt like they needed to make something to make themselves better, make themselves good enough to overpower the quirks and become the superior species. So what they did is they created Compound V. Compound V would have evolved into a billion or $1 million company, basically overpowering the quirk society. Over time, pretty much quirks would have been the norm, but it would be a lot more strict rules with using your quirks and stuff like that. And over time, they would have made a drug that would suppress the, quirk gene, giving most people that had the quirk gene weak and pathetic quirks that would make them basically straight up human. Like, cactus head, or I don't know, the ability to just squirt out water from their hands like a freaking super soaker, and not even like hard pressurized water, just straight up a water bottle type, poke a hole on top of a water bottle cap, squeeze it, that type of water. Basically weak quirks that could barely help anybody, that could barely help themselves. Weak quirks that would barely even be used in real life or in the day-to-day life. And basically quirks that were useless. And they would have made a drug similar to Compound B that would be the opposite of Compound B and would have taken the real ability of a quirk person and just give them a weaker version of their ability. Basically, over time, quirk people started to go down in society. Quirks would still be around, but they would be so weak to a point where superpowers and powers were different things. Powers, you just had a quirk, but superpowers were when Compound V came in. Now, Compound V would have been given to a select few of children and people over the years trying to still keep that hero society in, playback or incoming. Basically, they're still wanting heroes for America. It would also be heroes all around the world and all around the US, all around Canada, Mexico, Japan, everywhere. And this is going to take place in America, but it's going to be kind of like Japan type. It's going to take place in America, but most of the characters in Japan are going to be American now, half American and half Japan, half Japanese. Now, basically, we continue our story off. Sorry, we continue our story off with Deku's family and how he would be brought into the world. Now, Deku's family would have signed up for the whole entire Compound V thing, and went and took the offer from Compound V to make their child a superhero to give him Compound V. Basically, they would have given Deku Compound V. Basically, them experimenting on him from a young age, eventually him developing his powers as he would develop gills and the ability to telepathically communicate with fish. Basically, him manifesting these abilities when he was about 4 years old. And when his parents started to believe that he wouldn't have a quirk, pretty much Asashi and Inko, they were both quirk humans. Asashi would still have fire breath, actually. Him just having a more weaker version of fire breath that could only go as hard, can only go as far as 6 feet. But basically would have been able to set like a car or like a wooden stool on fire, but he could only use it for a short amount of time or a short period of time, or else his throat would feel like it literally swallowed a whole cactus. So he would basically feel like, someone stabbed his throat. Basically, pretty much Asashi would have started to try to train Deku. So Asashi would know a lot about martial arts. And basically, Deku would be living in a very old-fashioned Japanese pool house, basically near the coast of Japan. Not near the coast of Japan, but near the mountains of Japan. Basically, before Deku turned 5, pretty much, they needed more American heroes, because in this universe, Asashi would have been American. Basically, they would have taken Deku, or they would have pretty much packed up, and they would have gone to America. They would have lived in America, then basically sitting there. And over the years, Deku would start to manifest a quirk. But since only a select few of people were given Compound V, and most of them were quirkless before they were given Compound V, meaning that Deku would be the only first quirk person that would have Compound V. And basically, only other person that was a quirk person that had Compound V was Homelander. But basically, Homelander's quirk was X-ray vision and laser vision, stuff like that. Basically, him having abilities like that. Basically, what would happen over this time, pretty much Deku would have started to, become more of a cocky person over time. Basically, his father not liking this, but his father just dealing with it since he loved his son. Now, Deku would still love his parents, and he would still have some compassion, but he would still be kind of a cocky, arrogant jerk that only thought of himself, like the Deep in Season 1. Basically, him not really having that changing moment in his story. Now, basically, what would happen is pretty much, Deku, over time, became the Deep. And basically, him having the same costume as the Deep in, the TV show, him basically using his fame and, glory to join the 7 as well, and him eventually coming across the 7. Now, pretty much the 7 would have been a hero group, but they would have to, pretty much the 7 and multiple other superhero teams would have pretty much had, sign-ups, or pretty much complete courses. They needed to complete courses to join any superhero team, and if they graduated UA top of their class, they would be, considered to join the 7. Now, basically, what would happen doing this, what would happen is Deku would join into UA when he turns about 16. And in 16 years, he would basically leave his school for the 10-month art training and would have started to train his butt off, trying to get strong enough to go to UA, and then years after that, be able to be accepted into the 7. Basically, what would happen is Deku would start to train his butt off. Basically, him building up the same body, the same body he had in canon, plus a little bit more perfected because the Deep had a pretty okay, well, a pretty Spider-Man-esque or Aquaman-esque body build, a very good swimmer bod. Basically, what would happen is pretty much Deku we started to train in martial arts, combat, and also pain tolerance. Him taking hits like that, and also him focusing his underwater breathing. So pretty much the longest Deku could breathe is forever, actually. But basically, when he starts to feel a little bit weird, is about 2 to 3 days underwater. Now, basically, pretty much Deku also has the ability to pretty much semi-control water. Because that would be Deku's quirk. Since Deku's father had fire powers, it would be the opposite of that. But also, Deku's mother had the same telekinesis power. Basically, Deku being able to control water by pretty much, well, manipulating it. Kind of like pyrokinesis. Now, basically, pretty much he would be able to, well, move it around and hydrokinesis, I think I said it right, and basically be able to pretty much, well, control it, shape it, and manipulate it, kind of like how Iceman does water, kind of like Iceman does, ice, but basically more like waterbender type of powers. Basically him being a straight up waterbender, him being able to control water on a small scale, him being able to make water balls or pretty much shoot high pressure water blast, but he needed an outside force of water to use his power. So if he was, if he didn't have any water around him, he would start to dehydrate. Plus, he wouldn't be able to use his water manipulation quirk as well. Basically, pretty much, Deku would have, joined UA or would have signed up for UA. And pretty much for this canon, in UA, you have to pass a kind of a physical test, and this is going to be a lot more different than the entrance exams. In this universe, pretty much you would have to, well, fight one-on-one, kind of a versus match to see if you're good enough to get into UA. Meaning they would select 3 heroes that are already graduated that used to be in the 7 or used to be in a very good hero team near the ranks of the 7, and basically fight them and win against them. But basically what happened is they would have called pretty much the archer. They would have called I think, what was it again? They would have called a couple other heroes, and they would also call some familiar pro heroes we know from the My Hero Academia universe, aka pretty much, well, some of the pro heroes in this universe would have been part of the 7. And All Might would be completely different, if you know what I mean. So basically, pretty much what would happen is Deku would start to train his butt off. Basically, him doing some push-ups and some sit-ups in the warming or in the waiting room. Basically, eventually him being prepared and them pretty much being told to get ready. As Deku would put his, pretty much suit on, since they would show up with their hero costumes if they had one. Deku's hero costume basically just being fireproof, but also very water resistant. Now, basically, what would happen is Deku would have started to pretty much fight the first hero. And this hero would have been Best Genius. Best Genius having Compound V instead of the quirk, him still having the same power as he did in canon. Him fighting against Deku. As Deku would start to run around, dodging all these attacks, he would eventually, have a hit on pretty much, Best Genius, but Best Genius would have overpowered him with a huge not wind blast, but a huge straight up, I guess a whole shuriken type move. Basically him just using a bunch of clothing from pretty much the walls, because they would have fabric type posters or so like that, or fabric flags. Basically him just using the fabric and basically wrapping around Deku, mobilizing him. As Deku would start to freak out, he would see that multiple people in the waiting room that were on the sidelines watching the fight basically had water bottles. So he would use his powers to conjure up the water from the water bottles and pretty much soak and soak pretty much Best Genius in water. In this canon, Best Genius's clothes were really soaked. His gene threads would be way too heavy for him to control accurately. So pretty much his tighten or his grip on Deku would start to loosen just a little bit, enough for Deku to break out. Now basically this is a good time to go over Deku's powers, other than his quirk. Now he would have the base abilities of the deep. Basically him having pretty much the ability to breathe under water, him also being able to telepathically communicate with fish or to straight up just control them, and also him being able to pretty much have superhuman durability and strength. That would be basically it. Basically him having pretty much, I guess, him having the strongest that he can bench or lift is about 2 monster trucks, and that was basically it. And basically, Deku can only lift about 1 monster truck, and also he can punch through about 2 concrete walls. He could also, in human strength, he could basically rip a human person into two, if he really tried. But basically, what would happen is pretty much Deku would start to train. Well, not train. Daku would start to pretty much go as hard as he can, trying to get a hit on Best Genius. As Best Genius would dodge, since he would have, combat training, he would eventually start to trip up, and Deku would start to use a water bottle nearby, conjuring the water from that, and pretty much chucking it right into Best Genius's face at high pressure, basically making a cut on Best Genius's face. Basically, Deku grabbing Best Genius from the collar, and basically chucking him across the pretty much battlefield or battleground or mat they are fighting on, basically taking him out and winning. As pretty much a couple other people would go up against Best Genius after Best Genius had to, pretty much get back up on his feet. The next round, second round would have been King Orca. Now, King Orca would have actually been the original members of the Seven, pretty much alongside All Might and a couple others. Basically, what happened is pretty much basically Deku would have been a little bit intimidated, but he would have started to push through the fight, and basically would have started to go up against King Orca as hard as he can. Him sprinting right towards him, basically kicking him left to right. As he would start to dodge most of his attacks, Deku would eventually get overpowered and get pushed down to the ground, as King Orca would start to pretty much hit Deku with the sound move he has, the scream. Basically, Deku trying to overpower this, as Deku would basically use his hydrokinesis, and basically start to conjure up the water pretty much near him, and also pretty much conjure up the water that was in the bathroom a couple pretty much feet away out of the training room or out of the battle room. Basically him conjuring up that water and making a whole miniature tsunami right towards King Orca, pushing him down to the ground. King Orca would have said, "Thank you for the refill, kid." Basically him rushing towards Deku to just kick him out of the mat or the ring to take him out. But Deku would have dodged this attack and basically would have started to pummel or start to just try to punch King Orca as hard as he can. King Orca barely feeling the pain, him eventually overpowering Deku, and Deku being cornered to the ground, him being choked out. As Deku was the last attempt, he would have used most of all of his strength, literally every ounce of his super strength and durability, to pretty much punch King Orca right upside the forehead as he was choking him out, basically stunning King Orca, pushing him back a little bit, and Deku would have kicked King Orca just enough so he could fall out the ring. Basically, Deku knowing he couldn't really beat King Orca on a one-on-one, and basically King Orca was out of the mat, so he lost. So basically, we could switch to the last and final round. Basically, Deku getting in, and he would have came across Black Noir. Black Noir would have pretty much walked away, pretty much revealing a smaller hero right behind him. Basically, Black Noir just being there to see and reserve. Pretty much what happened is pretty much Deku, we got in the fighting stance. The smaller hero would have been more of a elderly type of hero, kind of a, I guess, speed hero with a yellow type shirt, a yellow type outfit with white in it. Basically, him saying, "You ready, kid?" Deku saying, "Bring it, old man." Pretty much, the old man rushing towards Deku as fast as possible and kicking him right in the nards, knocking him out semi. Deku starting to fade out and in of consciousness. As Deku would eventually put himself together, he would grab pretty much a little piece of water that was still left on the mat, and he would start to manifest it into a water shuriken. Deku being able to harden his water only as hard as wood, not as hard as wood, but not as hard as metal or copper or anything like that. And basically, Deku would start to try to slice towards the speed hero, but the speed hero would start to rush all around Deku, kicking him left and right, flashing him, to be precise. Not flashing him like that, but basically just flash kicking him left and right, like Flash would normally do to his villains. Now, Deku would eventually be overpowered, but eventually Deku would have said that was enough, and he would use all of his pyrokinesis, all of his hydrokinesis to use all the leftover water that was on the floor from his past matches, and basically flood them and pretty much make a whole levitating water ball around, well, the speed hero. The speed hero being immobilized, having no ground to pretty much, well, boost himself out of, and also him having no real levitation or movement to actually use his quirk or his compound V ability. Now, basically, what would happen is pretty much Deku would have had the upper hand, and he would have started to semi-drown the hero until he passed out, and then he would instantly let go of the hero. After that, Deku would be accepted into UA, and he would be told what he needed for UA, and also pretty much the dorms, because the dorms in this universe would have actually been an earlier thing. Basically, what would happen? Basically, doing this, you see that pretty much Deku would have started to pack up his bags and telling his dad and his mom, I'll see you doing, holidays, and basically he would go on to pretty much go back home, go to UA, him signing into UA and giving them his exception note and basically walking into UA. Now, basically, UA Academy pretty much will be a little bit different, but it will be a little bit more tweaked to be more interesting. And basically, Deku would get into UA, and pretty much he would get his pretty much, he would get his courses and also his classes, and basically would have started to be, or get ready for his first day of UA. Basically, him walking into UA thinking he's the biggest, baddest guy in there, bro. The biggest, baddest guy in there. And basically, him pretty much, just, walking in there. As he would see familiar childhood celebrities of already existing heroes, basically like Endeavor's child, and also Momoyaya Rozu. Momoyaya Rozu being the daughter of Black Noir in this canon. Basically, Deku's mother, Momo's mother, being the rich person, plus Black Noir will be paid a lot of money since he was on the 7th. So yeah. So Black Noir, basically to put it simple, Black Noir would have been Momo's mother in this canon, Momo's father in this canon, basically giving Momo the superhuman strength and durability abilities plus her quirk that she obtained from her mother, meaning that it's only like a few, I didn't say it first, but I just say only a few of people had a quirk plus compound V, but pretty much most of their quirk was, weakened. But basically what would happen is her quirk of making objects would have been only limited to handhold weapons, not actual cannons or anything. So she can summon a handgun or a katana or a dagger, but nothing like a cannon or, just fun little items like little stuff like that. Basically, her only being able to make little stuff like shurikens, blades, bombs, and maybe food, and stuff like that. So basically, pretty much as Deku would have been introduced to the class, he would have told him he's the Deep. His real name is Sukuma Doria, and he originally was from Japan, but he moved to America for the whole entire, achieving his goals of being a hero. Basically, what we'll do after that, pretty much, they will be interrupted by Azawa telling them to get ready for the quirk assessments, as they would go outside and they would be told to do their hardest. As they would do the ball throw, Deku throwing the ball pretty well, and get him getting about 3rd place, and for the long jump, Deku. So basically doing this, pretty much, well, I'm sorry guys, basically doing this, pretty much Deku, for the sand jump, he would have been able to jump pretty far using his super strength in his legs to pretty much push forward. Him basically barely getting over the sand pit, but being able to jump pretty high. Basically, for the race, Deku would have gotten about 3rd place. Basically, no, Deku would have gotten about 4th place, since he wouldn't be a really fast runner, but he would be fast enough to catch up with people that are athletic. And basically Deku would have started to train his body. After that, basically after the, pretty much quirk assessments, he would basically gone back to his dorm, just doing some training, doing some sit-ups and stuff like that. Basically, him eventually being interrupted by somebody in class 1A, him knocking on his dorm room. As he would open the dorm room, he would see pretty much Momoyaya Rozu telling Deku that, pretty much I heard what you, did, that you, the first one in years to actually beat King Orca doing the, 3-round thing. Basically, him saying that every year they change up pretty much who you have to fight to get into UA. And King Orca was a new one, and no one could fight him because he's been on the, defeat all pretty much around for the last 3 years of UA. Basically, him saying that no one's really been able to fight him and beat him that fast. Basically, Deku saying thanks, I guess. Now, as Deku still be in his hero costume, him saying that he's just, is really comfortable. And basically, he would have said, so, are you, her saying, yeah, I'm going. But basically, her saying, good luck out there. Hope you get into the 7. Basically, her walking off. Now, basically, only about 6 people from pretty much UA can get into the 7. The other, extra one being always open for Homelander. Now, basically, let's get into the 7's team, since we're done with Deku's story for now. Basically, the 7 in this universe would have been a lot more different. Black Noir, and pretty much Lady Shiva, I think, right? Or Lady, I don't remember her name. The Wonder Woman knockoff. Black Noir, and pretty much looked pretty much like translucent, would have been the same, but basically, since Deku would be the deep wouldn't be in the 7 yet, and basically the deep being replaced by Endeavor, or his spot in the 7 being replaced by Endeavor, and also pretty much Starlight being pretty much the same as well. Pretty much A-Train being replaced from somebody from pretty much, the Ida family. Basically, the Ida family being injected with quirks plus pretty much Compound V, but them just covering up to be Compound V. Basically, pretty much A-Train basically being an African, Blasian, African American / Japanese, pretty much a Blasian black hero with pretty much super speed, very similar to A-Train's power set, actually exactly like A-Train's power set, with him just having markings on the back of his thighs. Like, just like pretty much weird type of tiger type stripes on the back of his thighs. And basically for Homelander, he would have been this equivalent's version of, All Might. Now this version of All Might would have been born the same way in this canon, but he would have been born to Compound V. Him being injected with Compound V, and basically him also having a quirk as well. And this all-for-one quirk he would have actually been his born quirk. Him not having Compound V, the opposite version of Compound V that would suppress his quirk gene, but would have made it stronger. Him being raised in a lab, him basically having the same mindset as Homelander, but him having good intentions when he starts out to be Homelander. Basically, him still having the same name. Now doing this, pretty much. Well, that's gonna be it. Basically, All Might's power set is basically all, just Homelander's power set plus all the powers, all the strength he had in pretty much the All for One or One for All pretty much video, or I mean power set. Him being as twice as strong as Homelander. So yeah, basically, All Might would be Homelander in this universe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. And before I go, out of this video, I'm gonna be working on What If Belle Was a Mutant. And I hope you guys do enjoy that video. But let's get enough talking, and see you guys later. Bye. And as always, guys, be blessed.